The 2025 Atlantic hurricane season is 2 weeks away. Is the federal government ready? The Trump administration is currently overhauling FEMA, already cutting a third of the staff and still looking to cut $646 million from the agency's budget, threatening slower and less responsive emergency aid. Problems that state and local governments are already experiencing, by the way. In the Midwest, Kentucky and Missouri are cleaning up the aftermath of last weekend's tornado outbreak. At least 28 people have died. And after severe back-to-back storms and tornadoes hit Arkansas earlier this spring, the state is relying on federal assistance for recovery efforts.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the MeidasTouch Network. In one of my former careers after the Navy, I helped lead a disaster relief organization that conducted operations around the world. I've responded to typhoons in the Pacific, hurricanes in the Caribbean, and major flooding events and tornadoes right here in the U.S. So let me tell you, as someone who has been there in the immediate aftermath of major disasters, that the Trump administration's actions, slashing the National Weather Service and NOAA, it's all making us less safe. And when disaster does strike, the federal agency responsible for managing those emergencies, FEMA, will face enormous man-made challenges in helping victims recover. As many of you know, I am in Ukraine right now. This intro is pre-recorded, so I asked Bobby Jones, ex-Navy Task Group Commander, to step up. You're going to be hearing from him a bit this week. He has a lot to say about how Donald Trump is making America weaker and less safe with every passing day. Over to Bobby.
Are we safer yet? That's my simple question. Are we safer yet? In 2024, during the campaign, Donald Trump talked about he is the only presidential candidate that will make America safer, that will make the world safer, that he'll end all these wars and conflicts on day one. Well, the clip you just saw, taken in the heartland of the United States, begs to differ. We're not safer domestically or internationally. Let me explain. Domestically right now, we have thousands of people, not only without power, but in pretty desperate situations due to the unfortunate events of severe weather that's taken place. It's going on a week and no one has heard from FEMA. FEMA, which was set up in 1979 for this exact scenario by President Jimmy Carter, is nowhere to be found. Why? Because President Trump, at the beginning of his campaign and at the beginning of his administration, said FEMA is something that is a waste of money and that he's going to turn everything over to the states. This goes with his reoccurring theme of wanting all the power and the authority, but none of the responsibility that comes along with that power. And so right now in the Midwest, Missouri, Kentucky, Illinois, other areas, we have people who are in desperate situations, begging for FEMA and the federal government to help state officials do something about what they're seeing. And this is personal for me because, like many, I have family members who are directly impacted by the events of the weather, but most importantly, the lack of response. Okay. FEMA was so important that when the Department of Homeland Security was stood up, FEMA went under Homeland of Security because it is a national security issue. So you have a national security organization that has been gutted by the President of the United States. And in our moments of actual need, where you need the resources of the federal government to include military, National Guard, large apparatuses of government, emergency funding from Congress, we haven't heard anything from the President of the United States, hadn't even talked about it. Domestically, the Supreme Court of the United States has issued multiple rulings against the Trump administration in their bid to, quote, make America safe again, unquote. Well, there's a fine line between safety and constitutionality. And right now, the Supreme Court of the United States has issued multiple rulings that go against the Trump administration because the Trump administration believes the judiciary is not an equal branch of government as the chief executive and executive branch. And so really the only court that Trump feels like he has to listen to, and this is even precarious, is the Supreme Court. Historically speaking, that has never been the case in this country. If a federal judge rules on something federal, it's supposed to be enacted. But here we are yet again, President Trump making his own rules when they're not convenient. And if you don't toe the line, especially domestically, he's going to make you feel that pain. How do I know that? Well, let's look at what the FCC is doing. Okay. The FCC is responsible for the airwaves, what's broadcasted over the United States. Well, pretty much every major media outlet, with the exception of Fox News, has been threatened either by legal action by Donald Trump or actual, not judicial, but legal action through the FCC, which is supposed to be independent. The FCC is not designed to be a political hitman for the President of the United States. It's supposed to be independent and impartial. Yet for the first time in its history, it is going after organizations that do not give President Trump the coverage that he desires, the coverage that he now demands. And every other news organization has to make a decision whether to bend the knee, which many of them are doing, or be ready for legal combat. And the thing is, if they are one that picks legal combat, they more than likely will win. But then they become a bigger target to President Trump. Internationally, we're seeing unprecedented rollbacks of American policy that took place over basically 80 years. The Middle Eastern trip that President Trump took, where he visited Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE, were fascinating, right? He basically is trying to get a bribe of $400 million with a plane from the Qataris. He has done transactional, quote, economic deals with the Saudis and UAE. But what all three of those locations have in common, to include, Syria too, where he's talked to their leader for the first time and now is about to roll back Syrian sanctions, Trump's sons and the Trump organization, the Trump Foundation, whatever they're calling it now, has struck business deals in all of these countries, to include Syria, which is talking about building Trump towers in Damascus. So every place that he went was preceded by his family making deals to enrich themselves. And then all of a sudden, we get to roll back on all of these things because it's going to make Trump money. Never mind that 9/11 generated in Saudi Arabia. Never mind that Qatar has direct links to Hamas and Iran. Never mind these things that jeopardize the international security of the world and the domestic security of the United States. These countries want to make Donald Trump money. And that's what matters. Additionally, on the international stage, where there's no money involved for him, we're seeing abject failures. The war between Russia and Ukraine, Putin didn't even bother to show up for the peace talks that were supposed to take place. Zelensky was there, and because Trump saw Putin wasn't going to be there, he didn't show up. India, Pakistan, shooting at each other over the Kashmir region. They come to their own ceasefire without basically the United States doing anything. And then Trump tries to take credit for it, talking about, hey, the fact that we weren't going to trade with these countries is the reason that they sat down and came up with a ceasefire. Not understanding the historical, political, and cultural conflict between those two countries, to the point where he believes the threat of no trade is what made them sit down and talk. It's absolutely ridiculous for him to think that way. So between domestics and international relations, the only person that is safer now than before January 20th is Donald Trump, which was the whole point of him running in the first place. He's not making America safe. He's not making the world safe, but he's safer and financially better off because of it.
New Meidas merch drop. Check out the latest pro-democracy sticker packs, t-shirts, hats, sweatshirts, and more. All at store.MeidasTouch.com.